Good evening, Morgan Chapel, and happy Mother's Day on this May 10th, 2020. Again, just for announcement for Morgan Chapel, we begin having Sunday morning services. We're having Sunday school and worship services on Sunday morning, and we're going to start having one service a week for this month, and just kind of looking at the situation and how it's affecting our communities and around. So we're going to continue to have one service a week, and if you can't make it, we'll still try to do these online services also. So God bless you guys. Good to see each one that could be in there with us this morning, and all of our mothers. Just want to wish you a happy Mother's Day. Thank you for being there this morning and just being with us here this evening, and just want to wish each one of you a Mother's Day. And I appreciate all of our women so much. And we want to take this time right now just for Malik. He shared a song with us this morning, one of our Ripton Mountain boys, and he got to come and sing this morning. So we're going to share it with you right now. So Malik's going to sing Jesus Loves Me. Thank you, Malik, and I appreciate Malik. He always does such a good job and always willing to get up there and sing for us. But this morning we're going to look at it is Mother's Day, and again I just want to say thank you for all of our mothers. And before we start, just want to remember keep Linda and Chris and David and their families all in your prayers this week. We lost one of our members this week, Brother Wade Tolley. He passed away this morning, and I don't know the arrangements yet, so I'll try to let everyone know soon. But again, keep Sister Linda in our prayers, and we appreciate Sister Linda and appreciate her family all so much, each one of y'all. But let's keep them in our prayers. And as we go on, we want to move in and it's kind of looking at some things about mothers this evening. Um, One is, I think about mothers. What does mothers do? Our mothers are very protective, aren't they? They're very protective, and even after we're older, our mothers want the best from us. They want us to make sure. And one, I think the hardest things for especially a Christian mom and dad to look back and seeing that their children are straying from God. And our mom tried to help us so many ways. I hope your mom did too, but ours did. And I've saw her pray. I've saw her notes, even see her scribbled notes. I've still got some of them that she's praying for all of her children and worrying about the backside and conditions on each one of us. And I pray that all of us, as children of God, can just catch ourselves, especially during this time, maybe when we're out of not meeting regularly and being with the church so much. Let's catch ourselves if we find ourselves backsliding. And in Matthew chapter 26, we see a lot of the warning signs of backsliding. And I think it's some warning signs that our mom could give us today. And if you could speak to your mom or something, maybe she may tell you about some signs about backsliding against God. One is if it's about being boastful about ourselves, just thinking that that I'm the greatest. God's going to take me to heaven because I'm Greg Whitehead. He would never send Greg Whitehead to hell. No, he wouldn't. Greg Whitehead will send himself to hell if Greg Whitehead goes to hell. If you end up in hell, you'll end up in hell because you sent yourself there. God provided a way that you didn't have to go. But we see Peter here in chapter 26, verse 33. It says, "And Peter answered and said unto him, Though all men shall be offended because of thee, yet will I never be offended. And Jesus said unto him, Verily I say unto thee, this night before the cock crow, thou shalt deny me thrice. And Peter said unto him, Though I should die with thee, yet I will not deny thee. Likewise also said all the disciples." So we see here Peter and all the disciples. We're not going to deny you. We're not going to deny you. We'll be right there. If they're going to come, they're going to have to kill us first. We're going to die with thee. And they're just sitting there and just bragging how strong, in our own minds. And we have to be careful when we're boasting about our own strengths. Maybe you're boasting about your own, even in our work with God, in your ministry, in your teaching ability, anything, whatever you're boasting about, you better be careful. We better be careful because, there's none of us, there's nothing great about any of us except Jesus Christ. Except Jesus Christ. And if we're going to boast on anything, let's boast upon Jesus Christ. Let's boast upon the things of God and not of ourselves and not of the worldly things. So one of the first things I think Mom would tell us to be careful, child, you're backsliding, is when we start to be boastful. Boastful. The next one is when we let our prior life slip. We see here in verse 43, and it says, and he came and he found them asleep again, for their eyes were heavy. And when we start letting our prior life sleep or slip, we're not going to God and we're not talking to God like we should. We have to be careful because while we're backsliding. We're backsliding. And the less we talk with God, the less of a relationship we're going to have with Him. How do we have good relationships with people? It's through communication. We've got to speak with God. When we find ourselves asleep and not taking the time to talk to God, we're going to find our relationship slip. So let's make sure we're taking time to talk to God. A lot of times I like to talk to God hours before I go to bed. A lot of times I just don't pray right before I go to bed. Because, why? Because my eyes are heavy. When I get ready to go to bed, I'm like, oh, I'm ready to just to fall down and go to sleep. And I don't want to go to sleep in the middle of a constant talking to God. I want to be able to be alert. I want to be talking to God. It's just my personal preference. But the main thing is make sure you take time to speak with God. There's no set times of days. It's not 9, 12, and 3 that we have to speak to God. We can speak to God at any time. We can speak to Him at 2 o'clock in the morning. But make sure that we're alert, that we can talk to God and give Him our full right attention. And make sure that we're not found in a place of prayerlessness. If we are, we're going to be careful because we are in a backslidden condition. And Mom is telling us, you better wake up, child. You need to talk to God. Other one is being led by the flesh. Here we see, and we go up to verse 51, and it says, and behold, one of them which were with Jesus stretched out his hand, and he drew his sword and struck the servant of the high priest and smote off his ear. And we see, this the emotions taking over. Hey, we're never going to die. We're going to the end with you. We're going to die with you. And we see him pull out his sword, cut off the high priest's ear. The things, things are just getting started. And we're going to see him begin to deny, begin let that pride melt down a little bit. But one thing amazing about this story is if you keep reading here, chapter 26, this high priest servant, even before they led Christ away, he knew that he was more than man. He was God, because he picked up that ear. If you ever been cut or lost a digit or lost anything there, and to see God just to pick it up and put it back on, just like it was new. It's never been cut before. And you knew just a second ago, you could feel the pain and saw part of your body fall off. And he had to know that he was the Son of God. But we've got to be careful when we're led by the flesh, when we just take off without prayer, without doing things, and without thinking, and we'll just let emotions take over and running, because we have to let God be in control. We have to let God be in control of our life. We have to let God be in control of their local churches. It's not your church. It's not the pastor's church. It's not the deacon's church. It's not mama's church. It's not granny's church. It's not daddy's church. It's not grandpa's church. It's God's church. If we call it anything else, we better watch out, because if it's someone else's church, we're not doing what we need to do. It is the church. It is God's church, not our church. And we are just the caretakers of it. We are going out and trying to do His work out of this building. We're trying to come in and learn more about Him in this building. We are the church, but who is the head of the church? It's Jesus Christ. Because if we start leading by the flesh out of our own emotions and our own things, we're going to do things wrong. When we start thinking that we're in control, we're going to do things wrong. We got to let God be in control. So when we find ourselves trying to take control of the situation ourselves without God's help, we better watch out, child. Mom would say, watch out, child. We're in danger of backsliding, or we're in a backsliding condition. The next is just getting too far. I think mothers would warn us, don't get too far from Jesus. As you leave the nest, as you go out, if you're going to college, a lot of you just graduated, God bless you, and praying for you, because we lose a lot of kids straight out of the church after graduation. Why? They get into the world and they just leave God behind. They get just too far from Jesus, and Satan lures them away with the world, and they never come back. Be careful. Be careful, young folks. Be careful. It is a very important and a very hard time in your lives. It is. Do not get too far from Jesus. But after this, in verse 58, we see Peter. He followed him afar off into the high priest's palace, and he went in and sat with the servants to see the end. So what? He followed him. He didn't get up right beside of him. He didn't get up there and was like dragging me off to I'll die with thee, like he was first boasting about what. Now he's following afar off, just watching and getting farther and farther from behind Jesus. And we've got to be careful, because that's how it starts. We get a little far before and a little far off, and we get so far that we cannot even see where we've been. Be careful. Be careful, young one. Be careful, older one. Be careful, each one of us, that we don't get too far from Jesus, because I can say we can turn back and get far from God, but I want you to know God is always there with us. He knows everything about us. God is never far from us. We get far from God. And when we find ourselves getting far off from God, watch out. We're backsliding. We're backsliding. So be careful. Be careful that we do not get too far from Jesus. I want to get as close as I can to Jesus. I want to get as close as I can to Jesus. But we see here on the verse 69, as we move on up through chapter 26 of Matthew, it says, Now Peter sat without in the palace, and a damsel came up and saying, Thou also was with Jesus of Galilee. But he denied him before them all, saying, I know not what thou sayest. And when he was gone out into the porch, another maid saw him, and said, and to them that were there, This fellow, he was also of Jesus of Nazareth. And again he denied him with an oath, I do not know the man. And after a while, and to him they that stood by, and said to Peter, Surely thou art one of them, for thy speech betrayeth thee. And then he began to curse, and he began to swear, saying, I not know the man. And immediately the cock crew. And Peter remembered the words of Jesus, which said unto him, Before the cock crow, thou shalt deny me thrice, 3 times. And he went out and he wept bitterly. So earlier that day, he was so bold that he was going to die with God. And by the end of the day, he is back to his old sailor ways. He's cursing and swearing and saying, I do not know this Jesus of Nazareth. And church, I want to ask you today, when we start denying Jesus Christ, we've all denied him. I think we can be honest. We've all denied Christ. In some way, form, or fashion in our lives, we've denied Christ. But I want you to know, he loves us. He loved Peter. He loved Peter. He loves you. He loves each one of us. But when we find ourselves denying that we know Christ, if it's in a certain crowd, or if it's in a certain place at work, or a certain place at school, or a certain group of people that we're hanging out, Mom will tell us we better be aware who we're hanging out with or what we're doing, because we're in great danger. We are. Do you deny knowing Jesus Christ? I hope not. I hope not. Because if we deny him, he'll deny us before his Father, if we do not repent and come back to him. And I'm glad Peter, he did. He came and he became such a great worker for him. Such a great man spreading the gospel. And if you've denied him in the past, and if you're backsliding today, I can tell you, grab a hold of something, stop. Stop. Turn around. Do a U-turn. And let's start marching and doing the things of God. Because God can use each and every one of us. Starting this Mother's Day right now, we can honor our fathers and mothers. Why? We can honor our fathers and mothers by standing up for Jesus Christ. For standing up. That'll bring great honor to your mother this morning, if she's dead or if she's alive. It'll bring great honor to her and her life. But I just want to say thank you, Morgan Chapel. Thank you for joining me here tonight. And just wanted to give you I think it was 5 little things here. I think, from chapter 26 of Matthew, just some warnings about backsliding and some things that her mom, I think, would warn us about. If she could come talk to us today, if your mom's gone, I think she would give us some advice that we need to keep our eyes on Christ. Again, thank you, and I hope to see you. We'll be back, like I said, at the church Sunday morning. If you can't be there, I'll do another one of these lessons next Sunday night. And God bless you. Thank you. And let's keep Linda and Tolly and her family in our prayers. God bless you. Good night.